Welcome back into another episode of Where the Game Lives On, the official podcast of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. We've got a special guest on today. First time we're seeing Taylor Frederich in season 2. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be back and ready to kick off season 2.
I tell you what, it's a chilly morning. I got the coat on today.
It, as it goes, the weather in the Ozarks, can change on a dime, and it seems like it's done that. And fall is here, and hopefully here to stay.
I'll tell you what, we're getting into the time of the year, and I don't know why this frustrates me so much, but we're in the time of year where you come to work and you've got to have the heat on, but then by the time you leave work, you've got to have like max cold AC.
And where my office is at the Hall of Fame, I've basically got a wall full of windows. So my temperature in the office will fluctuate a whole bunch.
Cloudy day, sunny day.
This time of year, man, it's cold in the morning and I'm peeling off layers by the afternoon.
Yeah, the podcast studio here is pretty consistent. It's fairly cool. I like to run the heater a lot, when I can, but we stay comfortable either way. Little while since we've had you on. You've got a new family member since the last time we had you on.
New family member. I think last time I was here, I think we were in preparation for baby to come, and baby did come. Talon James was born on August the 16th, so he is just about 2 months old now. Mama's doing great, baby's doing great. Everything went very swimmingly with that. So
awesome! Congratulations, getting enough sleep.
Getting enough sleep, yeah. He's actually doing really well. Still, obviously, having to wake up and do some feedings and whatnot throughout the night. But other than that, yeah, he's growing right before our eyes, and everything's going really well.
So you've got one that's almost 3.
3, yep. She'll be 3 in December, and she's taking on the role of being a big sister, really, really well.
Awesome.
Not gonna lie, there are some times where the jealousy does kick in, but for the most part, she has been a rock star with him. So.
Yeah, that's so. You've also gotten the dad strength upgrade now.
I oftentimes, as we're lugging coolers around and whatnot, I do make the joke about a dad strength of 2 now. So I might be able to stack one more case of Coke product or one more ice cooler per load. Who knows?
I love it. Well, we had an interesting weekend of college football. I don't know what else you were doing, but that was definitely what took up most of my Saturday. We've been covering a lot of Mizzou, right? They've had a lot of success, but you're a Mizzou grad. Obviously, you saw the final score. Most people who listen probably saw it as well. What were your takeaways?
Well, you had a lot of hype going into the game. I was actually texting with a friend who was there Friday night. They had the Mizzou Midnight Madness at the Columns related to basketball. So they kind of had the basketball kickoff on Friday, parlayed right into LSU coming into town for an 11 o'clock kickoff. So the vibes were very, very high in Columbia. They started off really, the game started off really well. Thought that it was in complete control that the first half, just could not close it down the stretch. Made that crucial interception down the stretch. Didn't even give him a chance on that last possession with 40 seconds to go. But hey, the team's making strides in the right direction. Far better, and I will even say they've probably exceeded my expectations even right now.
Really,
if the season were to end, but again, a lot more ball still to play, and we'll kind of see how things shake out for them.
Yeah, and the road doesn't get any easier for them going forward, right? I think. As somebody who doesn't follow Mizzou as much as you, Saturday left me with some questions. I think from an outside perspective, what probably frustrated me most is I thought they looked like the better team until it came down the stretch, right? I mean, obviously Daniels is really good for LSU, but aside from that, I thought Mizzou played better team ball until it really got into crunch time.
I've got this box score and the stats right in front of me here. LSU outscored Mizzou 22-7 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, right there, you're not going to beat the likes of LSU. You're certainly not going to beat the Georgias, of the world or of the SEC whenever you're playing them. So yeah, down the stretch, you got to capitalize. Cannot make those crucial mistakes like they made, and give yourself a chance. Unfortunately, they were pinned deep in the, kind of their own territory, and just didn't really have much of a shot at it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and one thing I heard somebody I was talking to about the game is, you have your takeaways, you feel this way and that way. Granted, LSU is not Georgia, but somebody did say, hey, at least we didn't get beat like Kentucky got beat, and that's a team that now Mizzou's got to face. And so I guess you can look at it that way. They played a really solid ranked team. And they didn't just it wasn't like they just got blown out and didn't belong on the field. You saw the mistakes that were made that could have been fixed to win that game.
Competitive. I mean, they were competitive throughout it. And last year and in the years past, oftentimes you felt like there was a lack of competition. You didn't feel like they were possibly belonging on the same field. But again, they played well. As you mentioned, though, Noah, the road does not get any easier. Yeah. But you hate that. You wish Mizzou could have closed it out for all those gamblers out there. That pick six interception at the end sure was a killer. So
yeah, that's tough for sure. Well, the SEC is going to be the new home of my team, the Oklahoma Sooners. You actually texted with me on Saturday morning before this game because you're like, hey, like who do you think who should win this game? And I told you, I said Texas is the better team. They should win this game. And I guess maybe as a diehard Sooner fan, maybe I was proven wrong, but a tremendous win for them. I don't think people are necessarily jumping on are they a college football playoff team? That's probably a stretch still, but a good win, certainly the best win on their resume so far this year.
That is without question. The rivalry of Texas and OU can get get anybody hyped up, and the game lived up to its expectations. It's really just a solid game on both sides of the ball. But as we were kind of talking a little bit off camera, Oklahoma was the better team on Saturday, and there was no doubt about that. Stat wise, you look at Quinn, he had a pretty good game. Turnovers, bad times, but 31 for 37 and 346 yards. Pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, just again, did not get the job done down the stretch whenever they needed to.
Yeah. And you're right. OU Texas is almost like a holiday for me. It's just, there's that much, hype that goes around that game. But for me, what I think I've been surprised so much with in the second year under Brent Venables is everybody's always talked about his defense. And obviously in recent history with OU and Lincoln Riley, they did not have, I just remember watching OU in recent history, and it's like, these guys cannot make tackles. You're never winning the turnover battle simply because your defense wasn't creating turnovers. Right. So that's where I thought the difference really was, is it was like, this is a defense who is like, they are ball scavengers. Like you get the two interceptions, the Ewers fumble on the scramble. Like those kind of plays really shift momentum of games. And I think by the end of it, when you look back, that's kind of what I think was able to keep OU in it whenever it was back and forth, and really kind of give them that momentum swing that they needed, to keep it.
Whenever you've got 11 guys flying around the field like that on defense, it creates problems. Yeah. And, it creates problems for the best of them. Like, we said here, and we've talked about, briefly mentioned Quinn's, stat line, and, that defense, despite, being 31 for 37 and nearly 350 yards, they gave him trouble all day long.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you're looking at the score, and, Texas is probably lucky to escape getting beat by 4, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely, OU's offense kind of, I don't think they got, I don't think the play calling was changing much. They just weren't really having a lot of success there for a while in the second half. And you could feel that, again, momentum that was kind of shifting towards them. But it'll be interesting. I think that this last weekend really kind of started making moves as to who is a pretender and a contender for the college football playoff?
I think that you had some teams that, and I don't want to say Texas got exposed necessarily, but I do think that there were some teams out there that did. Your Kentucky's. I mean, what a beatdown they took. But you're kind of into the meat and potatoes. You're starting to get into that of the season. Yeah. You're getting into conference ball. You're getting into some of your conference rivalry games, and there's a lot to be still played out in college football. Another one that just Notre Dame. Notre Dame took another loss that just ultimately eliminated them from the college football playoff contention. Alabama has a pretty good win this past weekend, so who knows what's going to happen. I know we kind of briefly talked about last time I was on the expansion of the college football playoff and how that could look, and all of a sudden that's becoming more and more interesting, and in terms of what that could look like and add more teams to the mix moving forward. So
yeah, we obviously talk about the Big 12 and the SEC a lot on this podcast, being that we're in Missouri. And that's a big difference that I think is going to now be a change for the Texas and the OUs, like Mizzou, right?
Yep.
As opposed to OU having a big win and beating Texas, now they go play UCF. Next year, you're going to go play, you're going to go play at A&M after this game, or you're going to go play somebody that's like a losable game.
Right. And, I'm always looking ahead, right? Once Sunday night football ends, man, I'm looking at next week. Yeah. And same thing, same thing with Saturday. You kind of look ahead, and you had some exciting games. Obviously, we've talked about Texas and OU. You had the Georgia and Kentucky. You had these games. And there's not a lot on the schedule this next week that's kind of piquing my interest in terms of, a must-watch college football game. So, but yeah, to what you were saying, once that transition is made for Texas and OU moving forward, that schedule will not do them any favors. They're probably not going to be able to squeeze a UCF, or somebody in there, just the way that the schedule and everything's going to play out.
I look forward to the standoffish weeks that we will have in the near future.
Yeah.
When OU plays Mizzou, that kind of feels like, I wouldn't call that a rivalry, but it feels like a matchup renewed, because I remember watching that so much growing up.
Oh, and that's one of those things, I still find myself at times, looking at, for example, this year, whenever we were just talking around the office about Mizzou football, and I think Byron mentioned the K-State game and said something along the lines of, oh, well, that's a good non-conference game. And in the back of my head, I was going, what are you talking about? K-State is in the because I still sometimes associate Mizzou with the Big 12. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what do you mean K-State's in the conference? But anyway, like you said, some of those rivalries, whether it's Mizzou and Texas, or Mizzou and OU, or
Texas and A&M.
Texas A&M, that's bring that back, and it's good. I think there's still a lot to be shaken out in terms of the college football and conferences and realignments, and that's going to continue to change. But it's going to be exciting to have a jam-packed schedule like that, and every single week have something to look forward to. Absolutely.
Well, we'll keep it rolling here. One thing we like to do for our regular listeners, you'll realize this, we give a little update of the Office Staff Fantasy Football League. First time we've had you on since the league started. How's it going for you so far this year?
I am struggling this year.
You got a win this week.
I did get a win this week. I got a win in another league that I'm in, first win of the year. So it has just been a struggle. I've dealt with a little bit of injury problems on the squad, but I do not have high hopes for a high finish in fantasy football in any league that I'm in.
Don't you hate that?
You hate it. I mean, it's kind of like we talked about, I mentioned Notre Dame being out of the college football playoff, in week 6 or 7, whatever it is. Like, man, that like I'm pretty much out of contention right now.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. But we'll see if we can't wreak a little bit of havoc.
It's still early, right?
You know,
it's still early.
Maybe I will ruin somebody's playoff hopes.
Well, and the interesting thing is, though, that you may not realize, I'm sitting atop the standings right now at 3-1. I just moved into first with a win this week. Funny enough, I scored 137 and didn't even. I had Aaron Jones in my lineup, and because of some of the being that all the guys had locked in with play on Sunday, I wasn't even able to move him out. Right, but you are actually in 8th place at 2-2. But if you look up the standings, all the way up to 4th, every team from 4th to 8th is 2-2. So you're still right there. You know, it's Byron got a loss this week. He's been undefeated. He got his first L of the season. But it's, you know what I mean? Even though you're like, oh, I got the injuries and this and that, there's still time to make the moves and stuff. And nobody's really separated themselves. Everybody's gotten a loss.
And hey, I mean, there's, you know, you never know with what can happen with injury throughout, you know, Justin Jefferson goes on the IR this morning. So he's gone for the next 4 games. So, you know, who knows? That's injuries can always play a humongous factor. And, you know, the DJ Moores of, you know, and stuff like that, you know, those guys can get hot, and you know they can win you a fantasy football league at the end of it. So. Absolutely.
Well, we'll continue to keep you guys updated on the fantasy league. I hope you guys are somewhat invested in it like we are. We're always kind of chatting about it around the office. Another thing that we recently had going on, if you're a regular listener here, you had heard about our social media bracket challenge that took a look at all of our legends we have here at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. We're not going to get into the bracket itself. We've kind of divulged it in full extent. But one thing that is kind of exciting for us, that bracket will soon be outdated, actually. The selection committee here at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame notified us last week that a current Hall of Famer will be named a legend in the near future, meaning that they will gain that status. They will also be given a bronze bust on our Legends walkway outside of the Hall of Fame. That's all we want to say about it for now. We're not going to really be getting into it too much, but stay tuned, right? It's always an exciting thing when we get to do that. It'll be our first legend named since 2022. We didn't have any this year. So that's pretty exciting.
It's you know, being named a Missouri sports legend is the highest honor that we can bestow upon an individual here at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. So anytime that we are able to honor somebody in that fashion, it's fantastic for us. It's credibility for us. It's something very, very exciting that we're looking forward to in 2024 and honoring one of our state's best. Absolutely.
And we'll just leave it at this. Once this is announced, if you see it, you'll say, yeah. Fitting.
Makes sense.
Absolutely fitting. Makes sense. We'll remind you another thing. If you are watching on YouTube, you see this helmet right here in front of me on the desk. Our Super Bowl helmet raffle is live. You can tell here in front of me, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, a full-size signed helmet of the Kansas City Chiefs commemorating their 2 most recent Super Bowl wins. We will have a link below if you want to go check it out, see what it's all about. We're just trying to give somebody a chance to win a piece of memorabilia that isn't always easy to get your hands on. We have kind of thrown around the term one of a kind. We don't know for sure that it's one of a kind, but you're not going to find a piece of memorabilia this elite just anywhere.
Certainly something you can't just go to the store and buy. You know,
you're not going to Walmart to pick this up.
No, not at all.
In sports news, we'll keep it rolling here. We've kind of hinted at the Chiefs a little bit. Obviously, we are a lot of diehard Chiefs fans around here. I can say that having the fact that Byron's not on the podcast today. He's been out. He actually went to an Indianapolis Colts game this past weekend. But the Chiefs win again in Minnesota. They're kind of on a roll here a little bit. Sole possession of first place in their division, which I don't really see too much threat in the division right now. But looking at the game against Minnesota specifically, it wasn't maybe the prettiest win, but it is a win nonetheless. And I think that's really all that matters when it comes to the NFL, right?
It's a tough league. I mean, week in and week out, anybody can truly beat anybody, and that's been proven a couple times this year already. Some of the elite teams got beat by some that maybe some consider aren't in that kind of upper tier. But yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle. They just, they're figuring out a way to get by and do just enough to get those W's. The Vikings are a good team, but again, we talk about some mistakes made down the stretch, and there were some mistakes made down the stretch. You of course look on Twitter, look on X, whatever, and you do see a lot of people questioning some of the calls in the last couple minutes. I think that we had a guy, pop a helmet off with the, on the field. Probably should have been called at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't. There was that pass interference call last week that was not made that some say was questionable. So, it kind of, I think a lot of it is comes with the territory in terms of in terms of the Chiefs, right? All eyes are going to be on them. They've had a lot of recent success. They're in the headlines, whether they want to be right now in sports and in pop culture. So again, I think all eyes are on them, and they have an audience that maybe a lot of other NFL teams might not have.
Absolutely.
So again, a lot of eyes on them, but they're sitting in a pretty good spot. Got a divisional game this week, kind of like you mentioned. Having watched the first 4 weeks of the NFL, 5 weeks, I don't have a whole lot of worry in the conference. I think if the Chargers are always going to kind of give you a good run, but the Raiders, there's a lot of question marks around that team and happiness in terms of their players, and some of their key players don't have the running game going.
Did get a good win though on Monday night. They did get a good win that they hung on to on Monday night. And I think the point you made that I agree with the most is just the fact that the Chiefs are always under the microscope, right? And it comes with the territory. I mean, you talk about how hard it is to win a game in the NFL. You look at the Vikings. That's a team that won 11 straight games last year. Now they're starting the year 1-4. It's tough to win games in the NFL.
And losing 3 of those at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like all of a sudden that's, and like you said, it's a little bit, and it's a little bit of the LeBron James kind of, thing. We've kind of become numb, so to speak, to the greatness of LeBron that we saw. And to some degree, you're kind of getting that with Mahomes and the Chiefs is, that expectation is very, very high, and they set the bar very, very high. So they, it's the result of what's happened over the last, 4 or 5 years, and it's something that they're going to have to live with and deal with. And hey, it's like we talked about in college football, and whether it's college football, high school football, anywhere in between, the road does not get any easier from here. It's getting into the crux of the season, and a lot to look forward to. You are right with Patrick Mahomes, though. He's kind of been, everybody's been kind of saying, yeah, man, he hasn't looked that sharp the last 2 weeks. And I'm like, maybe he's just looked mortal, I guess. Like the bar is so high for him. You can't expect a guy to throw for 400 every single week. It's not going to happen. And exactly. I mean, he, there were some mistakes that, that you look at, interceptions that he made, that you kind of, your eyebrows raised, and you're like, wait a second, not him. Who is that? And who is that wearing number 15 out there, but hey, he makes mistakes. We kind of, again, talked a little bit about how many teams right now in the NFL would take a quarterback going 31 for 41, 381 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yeah. Yeah. It speaks for itself. So I think that you would find 25 to 20, 25-ish teams who would probably take that right now. Yeah. I think whenever you say Patrick Mahomes, people just automatically like expect the magical, right? They expect the extended plays and the crazy passes and this and that, and you still get it.
but it's like you're not just going to get the flawless perfection week in and week out. And it goes to show, they can win games regardless of if that's there or you're getting more of a on par performance, I guess, for lack of better terms.
And it's just the sample size window for him has been relatively small, and again, he's been able to cram a lot of success and narrow that window down to just the 3 of the 4 years being in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's, those 4 years, a lot of, you could take those 4 years and he could not play another down and he's a shoe-in for Canton.
Yeah.
So again, he has a lot of success in a very, very short period of time. But the road is not clear. They've got a lot of tough games still yet ahead. They've got the Bengals. Hey, the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles come to Arrowhead on Monday Night Football.
That'll be crazy.
Monday before Thanksgiving. So,
yep.
Talk about a hot ticket item. If they continue to win out right there, that's going to be a game that you'll want to be at.
Before all that, though, you did mention they've got a division game on Thursday night. They've got Denver. I guess when you're looking ahead, just internally with KC, what's kind of your biggest question mark?
It's kind of been a little bit of a theme that has seemed to been talked about today, but you always are fearful of injury. I mean, Kelsey goes down a little bit. He slams that helmet down on the side and you're thinking
everybody's like,
I mean, I've got a group text with some buddies that, is screaming Achilles. He kind of went there and kind of grabbed it, kind of the back of his ankle there. But really, I think a lot of, the receiving room is not something that I'm worried about, moving forward. I think our defense is really, really solid this year for
really good against the run. I feel like.
Chris Jones is making his presence felt in there despite not playing that week one. And hey, it makes you question, what kind of impact he could have had on that. You lose by 1 point to a really good Detroit Lions team.
Hottest team in football, probably.
Yeah. And by no means am I saying that, Chiefs win that game. But his impact on the field is certainly the presence of Chris Jones is important.
I think I would agree with you. I really didn't know what my answer was in the terms of the biggest concern. But I like that with the injury because I think they just have the perfect balance, right? Like you mentioned the wide receiver core. I don't have questions about it, but if Kelsey were out, like we saw in week 1, you just put a lot of pressure on other guys to make plays, or maybe the front 7 doesn't look great, but since Chris Jones has been back, especially, it helps just solidify the unit as a whole, And
you have a little bit of a unique running, your running back room in Kansas City is kind of unique. At times you'll
backs by committee.
We talk about having just had my son. I can look down and, be looking down at him for 1 second and Pacheco will be on the field. And then I'll look up and McKinnon's out there. And then next time Clyde might be in for the next series. So, that is posing some difficulties for teams to prepare for. They don't necessarily know what's being thrown at them. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. That's really, that's important in the NFL now. You see that, you see that a lot. But the personnel is one thing I will say that I was worried about at the beginning of the year, but I feel like they're going to start to catch their stride. And things are really going to start to click with them.
Yeah, it's at the point right now in the season where teams are still really trying to define who they are. And the road for the Chiefs going forward, like we've mentioned, the division, you don't really have a lot of concerns, but there's a lot of big games coming up for them. We say that the Chiefs are placed under the microscope, and we're probably guilty of that as well.
Yeah. Chiefs Kingdom is to be responsible for it. And, it's one of those things, again, it does come with the territory, but hope for the best. Great 5 weeks so far. Happy to be back at Arrowhead this Thursday. Short turnaround for them, but we'll be excited for a Thursday night football game on Prime.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we've come to the end of our time here. We had some topics that we didn't get to. Follow us on socials. Check us out across our platforms. We're going to be talking about some exciting things coming up. We want to talk about the Royals' new stadium, right? We haven't gotten to that yet. We'll get to it at some point, but some big episodes coming up. We've got some inductees who are going to be honored here in the near future. We've actually got Clay Harbor coming on the podcast here for next week's episode, so be sure to tune into that one. It'll be a good one. I've already got several questions that I want to ask between Missouri State football, the NFL, and just the TV personality side, right? So follow us on socials. Leave us a review if you would. If you're a regular listener, we appreciate any sort of feedback that we can get, and we'll keep pumping out episodes, new ones coming out every Wednesday as they always do. And we appreciate you listening. Taylor, we appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely, man. Happy to be here. I'll do it anytime.
Awesome. Sounds good. We'll see you next time on another episode of Where the Game Lives On.